I am Elena Cross, and I am 34 years old. For most of my life, I learned how to exist quietly. Not because I was shy, not because I lacked ambition, but because silence was the safest way to survive in a family where love had conditions. I'm telling this story now not to gain sympathy, but because there are people walking through life right now believing they are invisible by accident, when in truth, they were trained to be. Before I continue, please like, comment, and subscribe, and tell us where you're watching from. You never know who might need to hear this story, or who might finally feel seen through it. When people ask me about my childhood, I usually smile and deflect. I say things like, it was fine, or pretty normal. And technically, that's true. I wasn't beaten. I wasn't starved. I had clothes, food, and a roof over my head. But childhood isn't measured by survival alone. It's measured by presence, by attention, by whether someone looks at you and actually sees you. In my house, I was rarely seen. I was 7 years old when my sister Marbel was born, 2 months early and fragile enough to terrify every adult in the room. I remember my father scooping me up in the middle of the night, his hands shaking as he rushed toward the car. I remember my mother crying into her phone while my Aunt Clara came to take me away for a few days. Those few days turned into a pattern. Marbel survived, but fear moved into our house and never left. Our home became something between a hospital and a shrine. The smell of disinfectant lingered in every hallway. Windows were kept closed. Shoes were wiped. Hands were washed until skin cracked. Every cough was an emergency. "Elena, was that a sniffle?" my mother would ask sharply. Before I could answer, she'd already decided. "Pack a bag. You're going to Aunt Clara's." I learned quickly that being healthy didn't matter. Being near Marbel was the problem. It happened so often that by age 9, I kept a permanently packed bag in my closet. Extra clothes, a toothbrush, books, like a guest in my own life. At first, I tried to treat it like a vacation. Aunt Clara was kind. Grandma spoiled me. But as the years passed, I realized something painful. I wasn't being sent away for my benefit. I was being removed for Marbel's comfort. That was my first lesson in displacement. So I adapted. I became excellent. School became the one place where effort still meant something. I chased grades with a kind of desperation that adults mistook for ambition, but it was really hunger, for recognition, for proof that I mattered. Straight A's, honors classes, debate club, science competitions. I still remember standing in the kitchen one afternoon, holding a small trophy from a regional academic competition. "Mom," I said carefully, "I won first place." She barely looked up from the counter. "That's nice," she said. Then her eyes narrowed. "Did you wash your hands?" Marbel's immune system is still delicate. That moment taught me another lesson. Achievements don't matter if they belong to the wrong child. By the time Marbel turned 8, she was perfectly healthy. Strong. Loud. Energetic. But the rules never changed. My parents had spent so many years revolving around her fragility that they didn't know how to stop. And Marbel noticed. She learned quickly that tears, even fake ones, worked. By middle school, she'd mastered it. If she didn't get her way, she got sick. If she didn't like a rule, she panicked. If I succeeded, she suddenly felt overwhelmed. And my parents adjusted everything around her moods. High school should have been my time. Teachers believed in me. Counselors talked about scholarships, futures, possibility. One parent's night is burned into my memory. My chemistry teacher smiled warmly at my parents. "Elena is one of the brightest students we've had in years. She has a real future in." My mother's phone rang. Marbel couldn't find her favorite pen. My parents apologized, gathered their coats, and rushed out, leaving me standing next to a poster board filled with my work. A pen ended my future conversation. After that, they stopped coming to my events altogether. "It's easier this way," my father said once. Less stress for Marbel. When I won a statewide debate championship, the trophy didn't go on the mantle. "It makes Marbel anxious," my mother explained, sliding it into a drawer. By then, I understood my role. Don't outshine. Don't disrupt. Don't need. College acceptance letters arrived like small miracles. I earned a full academic scholarship to Redwood State University. Tuition, housing, books, everything covered. I was ecstatic. Marbel rolled her eyes at dinner. "Finally," she said. "Now I get your room." My parents laughed. That was the moment I stopped trying to belong. College was freedom. Not because it was easy, but because it was quiet. No walking on eggshells. No shrinking myself. Just work, effort, and results. I graduated with honors and landed a job as a junior manager at Lakeshore Consulting. The pay was modest, but for the first time in my life, the space was mine. Then something unexpected happened. I discovered investing. It started with curiosity. A late-night article. Then a course. Then discipline. I studied relentlessly. Markets. Trends. Risk. Timing. My first win turned $750 into $8,200. Then another. Then momentum. By my late 20s, my side investments outpaced my salary. I quit quietly. I never told my family. At family dinners, they still spoke to me like I was barely surviving. "You're still at Lakeshore, right?" my mother would ask, distracted. "Yes," I'd say. It was easier. Meanwhile, Marbel attended Crestview Private University, funded by massive loans and my parents' sacrifices. Later, my money. When my parents struggled, I stepped in. I sent $2,700 a month without being asked. For the first time in years, my mother hugged me. I thought maybe love would follow generosity. I was wrong. I overheard them planning how to divert my money to Marbel's lifestyle. Designer clothes. Appearances. Status. That was when something inside me hardened, not into bitterness, but clarity. I wasn't their daughter. I was their solution. And I didn't yet know it, but everything I'd endured was quietly preparing me for the moment when silence would finally break. By the time I turned 30, my life no longer resembled anything my family believed about me. On paper, at least the version they carried in their heads. I was still the quiet daughter who worked a modest management job, lived carefully, and survived paycheck to paycheck with admirable restraint. That image suited them. It kept expectations low and demands high. In reality, my investment portfolio had grown into something solid, deliberate, and powerful. Not overnight wealth. Not luck. Years of discipline. Missed parties. Late nights. Calculated risk. Patience. But my family didn't know any of that. And worse, they didn't care to. Every phone call followed the same pattern. "How's work?" my mother would ask, already distracted. "Fine," I'd answer. And that would be the end of interest in my life. Then came the pivot. Marbel graduated from Crestview Private University with a degree that sounded impressive, but translated poorly into the real world. The job offers she bragged about never materialized. Interviews dragged on. Rejections arrived quietly, unannounced, unexplained, devastating in a way she had never experienced before. That was when the panic started. "Loan payments are crushing us," my mother said during one call, her voice heavy with practiced distress. "Your father's blood pressure is up again. We don't sleep anymore." I already knew what was coming. "How much do you need?" I asked. She paused, just long enough to make it seem reluctant. "If you could increase the support to $3,200 a month, it would change everything." I stared at the wall of my apartment, listening to the echo of years where my needs had never mattered. "Okay," I said. Her relief was instant, almost joyful. The next sentence confirmed what I already knew. "This will help so much with Marbel's loans. And maybe we can finally get her some proper interview clothes. First impressions matter, you know." Of course they do. I doubled my contribution. Not because I had to, but because I still hoped, stupidly, that effort would eventually be returned. Marbel finally landed a job 3 months later. Not through merit. Not through interviews. But through a connection. A former college acquaintance of my father's happened to sit on the hiring committee. Suddenly, Marbel was offered a role with the title associate manager, a position she boasted about endlessly. She still lived at home. She complained constantly. "I can't believe I have to stay here," she whined one afternoon as I visited my parents' house. "Do you know how embarrassing it is to commute from the suburbs? You could look for something smaller," I suggested gently. "Maybe outside the city center." She stared at me like I'd insulted her existence. "I need to be in the right neighborhood, Elena. Not that you'd understand." I glanced around the modest living room she occupied rent-free. But I said nothing. Silence had always been my specialty. As the months passed, my contributions became expected, not appreciated. If a transfer arrived late, my phone rang immediately. If I hesitated, guilt followed. "After everything we've done for you," my father said once. I almost laughed. What they had done was raise me to be useful. Nothing more. By 31, I was exhausted. Not from work. I loved my work. From being needed without being valued. That was when I decided to buy my own place. Not an upgrade. Not a flex. Just permanence. I found a quiet, secure apartment overlooking the Riverline district. Clean lines, solid construction, privacy. No mortgage. No loans. No explanation required. The day I signed the papers, I stood alone in the empty living room, listening to my footsteps echo. For the first time in my life, something was truly mine. When I mentioned the move to my mother, she barely reacted. "Did you find a cheaper rental?" she asked. "Just a different place," I replied. "Well, don't overspend," she warned. "The job market is unstable for people in your position." I almost smiled. At the next family gathering, my Aunt Clara asked about my apartment. "Elena's renting somewhere new." My mother jumped in quickly. "But wait until you hear about Marbel's promotion." The room shifted toward my sister instantly. Relatives praised her ambition, her future, her potential. My father raised his glass proudly. "She's always been our achiever." Someone whispered near me, "At least Elena's steady." Steady. I sipped my wine and thought about the trade I'd made that morning that earned more than his yearly salary. But I stayed quiet. Then came Thanksgiving. That year, my mother injured her back and panicked over hosting. For once, she looked at me, not Marbel, for help. "Could you handle the food?" she asked, voice strained. "I'll take care of it," I said. I arranged catering from a well-known restaurant downtown. Nothing extravagant, just good food done well. The dinner went smoothly. Compliments circled the table. My mother, glowing with attention, finally acknowledged me. "Elena organized everything," she told the relatives. "She's doing well enough to help us quite a bit." The words were casual, but Marbel noticed. Her jaw tightened. Her fork paused midair. She stood abruptly and left the room. I assumed it was another tantrum. I was wrong. She returned moments later, holding my laptop, the one I'd left open in my old bedroom to monitor overseas markets. Her smile was sharp. "Dangerous. Since Elena's doing so well," she announced loudly, "let's see just how well." My stomach dropped. "Hall, Marbel, don't," I said, standing. Too late. She turned the screen toward the table. My banking dashboard was still open. The room fell silent. Not uncomfortable silence. Shock. Marbel's face drained of color. Her hands shook. "What is it?" my mother asked impatiently. "What does it say?" Marbel swallowed hard. 4 million. The word landed like a bomb. Forks clattered. Chairs shifted. "That can't be right," Aunt Clara whispered. I closed the laptop gently and looked around the table. "I haven't worked at Lakeshore for years," I said calmly. "I invest full-time." My mother stood so fast her chair scraped loudly against the floor. "You have millions," she screamed. "And you let us struggle?" Something inside me cracked, not loudly but completely. "I send you $3,200 every month," I said. "That's not struggling. That's nothing to you," she shouted. "You should be sending more. We're your parents." "And Marbel?" I asked quietly. "What about her potential?" The room erupted. Accusations. Demands. Tears. Marbel cried, real this time. "You let me think you were a failure," she sobbed. "You enjoyed it." I met her eyes steadily. "You enjoyed believing it." My father demanded $9,000 a month. My mother called me selfish, ungrateful, heartless. I laughed once, short and sharp. "My money is mine," I said. "And I'm done explaining myself." I grabbed my laptop and walked out. Behind me, my mother screamed my name. That was the last time I heard it spoken with authority. I barely made it home before my phone started vibrating like it was possessed. Calls, texts, voicemails stacking on top of each other. At first, it was anger. My mother's messages came fast and sharp, each one more unhinged than the last. "How dare you embarrass us like that? You think money makes you better than your family? You've changed. And not for the better." Then came my father's voicemails, long, rambling speeches about duty, sacrifice, and respect. He talked as if I were still 12, as if I hadn't just discovered how conditional their love had always been. Marbel tried a different tactic. Her messages were shorter, colder. "So that's why you acted superior all these years. You let me believe you were nothing. You owe me for that." I didn't respond. I sat on my couch, staring at the city lights outside my window, feeling something unfamiliar settle in my chest. Relief. For the first time, the truth was out. I didn't have to carry it anymore. And even though the fallout was violent and ugly, there was a strange peace in knowing I no longer had to pretend. The next morning, I woke up to hundreds of notifications. My mother had taken it public. Her social media post was long, dramatic, and carefully written to paint her as the victim. "I never thought I'd see the day," she wrote, "when my own daughter would turn her back on her family after becoming wealthy. While her parents struggle and her sister carries student debt, she sits comfortably on millions and refuses to help. Money truly changes people. Please pray for her heart." The comments poured in. Family friends, church acquaintances, people who hadn't spoken to me in years suddenly had very strong opinions about my character. How could she be so heartless? I always felt something was off about her. Greed destroys families. My mother liked every comment, replied with crying emojis, thanked people for understanding. What hurt the most wasn't the strangers. It was how easily she erased everything I'd already done. The years of monthly transfers. The sacrifices. The silence. None of it mattered now that I wasn't giving enough. I stared at my phone for a long time before opening my banking app. There it was. The recurring transfer. $3,200 every month. Money they called nothing. My finger hovered over the screen. I thought about my childhood, about packed bags and closed doors, about trophies hidden in drawers, about how quickly they demanded more the moment they learned the truth. Then I pressed cancel. The confirmation screen appeared. Transfer stopped. I didn't feel guilt. I felt free. I sent one final message to my mother. "I've canceled the monthly support. I will no longer be your financial solution. Please don't contact me again." The response was immediate. Rage. Threats. Accusations. I blocked her. Then my father. Then Marbel. Phone numbers. Emails. Social media accounts. All of it. For the first time in my life, I chose myself without apologizing. I knew they wouldn't stop. And I was right. 2 days later, my building's concierge called up. "Elena," he said calmly, "your parents and another woman are downstairs. They're insisting on seeing you." My stomach tightened, but only briefly. "I've already given you their names," I said. "They're not authorized." "Understood," he replied. "They're causing a bit of a scene." I didn't go down. I watched from my balcony as they argued with security, my mother gesturing wildly, my father pointing toward the building, Marbel standing behind them with her arms crossed like a child denied a toy. Eventually they left. That night, I slept better than I had in years. Over the next few weeks, the messages shifted. My father found new numbers to leave voicemails. "This isn't how family works. You're making a terrible mistake. You'll regret this when we're gone." Marbel tried guilt. "I looked up to you, you know. You could help me reset my life." But the words rang hollow. They weren't reaching out to reconnect. They were reaching out to regain access. So I stayed silent. And in that silence, something remarkable happened. My life expanded. Without constant demands, my days felt lighter. I traveled more, read more, laughed more. I stopped checking my phone with dread. One evening, as I reviewed properties in other states, I realized I wasn't running. I was choosing peace, choosing distance, choosing a life where love didn't require payment. Some people say blood is thicker than water. I disagree. Respect is thicker. Consistency is thicker. Care is thicker. Family isn't who raised you, it's who sees you. And for the first time, I stopped trying to convince people who never wanted to understand. As I close this chapter of my life, I know some will judge me. They'll say I abandoned my family. That money changed me. They're wrong. Money didn't change me. It revealed them. And walking away wasn't cruelty. It was survival. If you've ever been the invisible one, the reliable one, the good child whose needs were always postponed, know this. You don't owe anyone access to your life just because they share your blood. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is step away, build your peace, and protect it fiercely. And if this story resonated with you, please like, comment, and subscribe, and tell us where you're watching from.